asked them a question today, and I'm sure if you're of the type of person who just always hates the one team and loves what the other one does, they asked them a question about.
In a media landscape saturated with performative outrage and carefully curated narratives, Bill Maher has carved out a niche as a provocateur who thrives on dismantling hypocrisy with surgical precision. His recent appearance on The View, a daytime talk show known for its staunchly progressive panel, became a masterclass in exposing double standards and challenging the prevailing woke orthodoxy. The exchange, which unfolded live on television, was less a debate and more a collision of worldviews, one grounded in reason and skepticism, the other steeped in emotional fervor and narrative control. What transpired was a moment that reverberated across social media, news outlets, and water cooler conversations, cementing Maher's reputation as a truth-teller unafraid to confront the sacred cows of the left. This essay delves into the nuances of that confrontation, the broader cultural implications, and why Maher's approach resonates in an era of polarized discourse. The stage was set when Maher, a comedian and political commentator known for his biting wit and no-nonsense takes, stepped into the lion's den of The View. The panel, consisting of Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, and others, has long been a bastion of progressive talking points, often delivered with a mix of moral superiority and theatrical indignation. For years, the show has served as a platform for championing social justice causes, critiquing conservative policies, and, more recently, railing against what they perceive as the existential threat of Donald Trump. Yet, it's also been criticized for its tendency to twist words, misrepresent opposing views, and shut down dissent in favor of a monolithic narrative. Maher, a liberal who has increasingly distanced himself from the far left, was an unlikely guest, one whose presence promised either a clash or a capitulation. Spoiler, he chose the former. The spark that ignited the confrontation came when Maher addressed the term woke, a word that has become a lightning rod in cultural and political discourse. Originally rooted in the Black community as a call to stay vigilant against social injustices, woke has morphed into a catch-all descriptor for hyper-progressive ideologies that prioritize identity politics, language policing, and moral grandstanding. Maher, ever the linguist, noted this evolution, arguing that the term's original meaning had been co-opted, not by conservatives, as the panel claimed, but by the left's own excesses. He pointed to the rise of cancel culture, microaggression, policing, and the obsession with performative virtue as the true culprits in turning woke into a caricature. For Maher, the left's behavior handed conservatives a loaded weapon, and they've been firing it ever since. Sunny Hostin, one of The View's more outspoken co-hosts, seized on Maher's use of the term, attempting to frame it as a betrayal of progressive values. With a mix of rehearsed indignation and nervous energy, she rubbed her forehead and avoided eye contact. Hostin accused the right of hijacking and weaponizing woke to vilify social justice. Her argument was a familiar one. Conservatives had taken a noble concept and twisted it into a slur to attack progress. But Maher, calm and collected, was ready. He dismantled her premise with a clarity that left no room for misinterpretation. The right didn't redefine woke, he argued. The left did that themselves by embracing dogmatic tactics that alienated even their allies. Canceling people over minor missteps, policing language to the point of absurdity, and prioritizing feelings over facts. These were the self-inflicted wounds that turned woke into a punchline. Maher's response wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a mirror held up to the panel's own complicity. The discomfort in the room was palpable. The View's panel is accustomed to controlling the narrative, steering conversations toward predictable talking points that affirm their audience's biases. But Maher, a seasoned debater, refused to play along. When Hostin pressed him further, implying that his criticism of woke culture aligned him with conservative talking points, Maher doubled down. He acknowledged the term's origins as a positive force. Awareness of injustice is undeniably valuable, but insisted that its migration into a tool for ideological conformity was a problem of the left's making. His willingness to engage with the term's complexity, rather than retreat into defensiveness, exposed the panel's reliance on oversimplified narratives. They wanted a gotcha moment. Maher gave them a lesson in intellectual honesty. Enter Whoopi Goldberg, the panel's unofficial queen, whose flair for dramatic outbursts is as legendary as her commitment to progressive causes. Sensing that Maher was gaining the upper hand, Goldberg launched into a full-throated attack, accusing him of being flippant and dismissive. Her tone was less about engaging with his argument and more about shaming him into submission. She framed his critique of woke culture as a personal betrayal, as if questioning the left's tactics was tantamount to abandoning the fight for justice. "Nobody wants to go through this," she declared, implying that Maher's skepticism was not just wrong but morally reprehensible. It was a classic tactic: deflect from the substance of the argument by appealing to emotion and victimhood. But Maher, unfazed by the theatrics, stood his ground. He's been navigating these waters for decades, sparring with everyone from religious fundamentalists to political operatives. Goldberg's outburst didn't rattle him, it only sharpened his focus. He reiterated his point. Prioritizing feelings over evidence, as the left increasingly does, fuels division rather than progress. The audience could feel the tension, but Maher didn't need to raise his voice to command the moment. His calm, reasoned delivery let the truth do the talking, a stark contrast to Goldberg's performative rage. The confrontation took an unexpected turn when, days later, Goldberg found herself at the center of her own controversy. During a separate episode of The View, she claimed that the Holocaust wasn't about race, but rather man's inhumanity to man. The comment, made with her characteristic confidence, sparked immediate backlash. Social media erupted, with critics accusing her of downplaying the racial and ethnic dimensions of the genocide. Mainstream outlets amplified the outrage, and ABC News, The View's parent network, acted swiftly, suspending Goldberg for 2 weeks. For many of Maher's fans, the timing felt like cosmic justice, a karmic slap for her attack on him. The irony was inescapable. Goldberg, who had accused Maher of flippancy, was now facing the kind of public shaming she often endorsed for others. Yet Maher, ever the contrarian, chose a different path. Rather than gloat or pile on, he called for Goldberg's reinstatement, arguing that freedom of speech must apply even to those who offend. It was a bold move, one that highlighted the contrast between his commitment to open dialogue and the cancel-happy culture The View often represents. Maher's stance wasn't just principled, it was strategic. By refusing to play the outrage game, he exposed the hypocrisy of a media ecosystem that thrives on selective indignation. Goldberg, predictably, didn't reciprocate the courtesy. Instead of reflecting on Maher's gesture, she doubled down, dismissing his defense and reigniting their feud. It was a reminder that for some, loyalty to narrative trumps logic, facts, or even basic decency. The broader significance of Maher's clash with The View lies in what it reveals about the state of public discourse. The panel's tactics? Twisting. Words, appealing to emotion and shutting down dissent, are emblematic of a larger trend in progressive circles. The woke playbook, as Maher described it, relies on narrative control rather than honest debate. Misrepresent an opponent's intent, paint them as a villain, and spread misinformation like wildfire. It's a strategy that's been deployed against figures like Donald Trump for years, bending every quote and headline to fit a predetermined agenda. When Maher walked into their studio, the panel tried the same tired playbook, but he was ready. His ability to stay focused, correct the record, and expose their double standards was a masterclass in navigating a hostile environment. Maher's defense of Trump, however limited, added another layer of complexity to the exchange. He's no MAGA loyalist, far from it, but he's come to appreciate the former president's unfiltered authenticity. In an era of polished politicians who pander and pivot, Trump's refusal to mask his flaws or script his empathy stands out. Maher, a truth seeker at heart, seems to respect that rawness even if he disagrees with much of Trump's agenda. This perspective drives the panel, and much of the progressive left, up the wall. They can't fathom a liberal icon like Maher deviating from the anti-Trump script, but that's precisely what makes him compelling. He's not interested in tribal loyalty, he's interested in calling it like it is. A particularly telling moment came when Maher addressed Joy Behar, another View co-host, urging her to stand her ground against the woke mob. Behar had recently faced criticism for comments about Trump supporters, and Maher, sensing her fear of backlash, called it out. His message was clear. Don't cower to performative outrage, even if it comes from your own side. The moment peeled. Back the curtain on The View's internal dynamics, revealing how often the panel panders to extreme ideologies to avoid conflict. Maher's challenge to Behar wasn't just personal, it was a broader indictment of a media culture that prioritizes fear-driven compliance over principled debate.